Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. As always, I'd like to thank all the new subscribers for subscribing and my previous subscribers for the continued support. It would be great if you guys could give me a big thumbs up, and yeah, if you're new to this channel, subscribe. I've got loads of content coming out. So recently I've been watching a few videos on to be honest, I can't remember what exactly I watched. It was last week some point. It was this sort of, I think it was a documentary where it was a sort of a time lapse of grass growing. So I should have had this ready. I'll quickly just search it now. Just turn off the music. The bit we want to see is where the grass starts growing, which is around here, and I really like this effect. Obviously we don't want it this sort of stop motion type effect of growing, but we want it to sort of grow out like maybe, I don't know, if it was magic beans from Jack and the Beanstalk. So let's get straight to it. This is the setup I created and the setup I'm going to teach you how to create. It's an emitter. You can obviously, once you've created it, it's quite procedural in the sense of you can create it as big as you want and it will create it. Yeah. So let me get it back to the size I had it approximately, which is the other way around, I believe. So you'll be able to create something like this. So we'll start off with a new scene, and what we want to do is oh, I forgot to mention that it's going to be using all the native Cinema4D tools, no plugins like X Particles or any other plugin that there might be out there for particles. What we want to start off with is if we can go into simulate and select emitter and create an emitter. And then what we can do is if we press R on the keyboard, or we can go to this rotation tool here and rotate so that it is 90 degrees, in which the emitter should be firing up. Then we can go into emitter settings and dial in the settings of it. So we want it like a patch of grass. So I want it approximately that sort of size. Then I also want it, let me just remove this. We also want it to birth more particles. So let's say 25 by 25. I want to slow down the speed, maybe make that 90, and the variation percentage we can turn that to 35. That just gives it a nice little variation to break sort of the illusion and make it look more random. On variation of speed we can turn up as well, so we can turn that to about 30 as well. And rotation and end scale, I'll let you guys sort of mess about with that to dial in your own settings, but I'm not going to be using it for this tutorial. Then what we want to do is we want to work out how many frames. For this, 72 will be perfect for me. And then what we can do is we want some sort of mesh to show us what is going on. So if we click on emitter, we can go to MoGraph and select the tracer. And with the emitter selected, it will automatically drag the tracer, it will automatically drag the emitter into the trace link, which will give you these lovely lines. Now, as you can see, they're quite linear, they're straight up. We don't want that. So we're going to add some forces. We can go into simulate, go into forces. I'll just rip this tab up because we can use a few different forces. And today I'm going to be showing you the way of doing it by introducing forces using the field force. So once you've selected the field force, what I like to do is zero out the X so that we've got a flat plane. It depends on the way you work, so that one's not the one for me. It's going to be Z. And then if I go into object, I want to add a random field which is going to create these sort of vectors, these little lines here, they're known as vectors, and they will show you what direction they are pointing in. And the more dense you make it, the more apparent it will become. This will not affect the animation or simulation in any way. This is more for visual purposes. As you can see, it's in display, but by having it set to a higher amount will slow it down depending on how big the animation is. So what I like to do is I like to sort of make this random field invisible because I don't like to see it. It just creates a box. Then what I want to do is if I go into random field, I can pick a noise. You guys can go through these noises and pick different noises. Each noise will create a different effect. I am going to use the Stupel, and I'm going to make the scale a bit bigger because we don't want it to go too crazy. When we press play, we'll start seeing this lovely sort of effect. Maybe I can reduce it and get it so that it's got more of a variance. Let's reduce it a bit more, and there we go. Now what I want to do also is go to animation speed and sort of increase it. You'll be able to see these vectors at the back jumping about as they are sort of controlling in which direction they should go. What we can also do is we can go back into field force, and where it says object and we've got strength, we can turn this up. Let's turn that up to 15. That will also extend these vectors out, showing you that it will be giving it more force. You can also play about with these velocity types. We've got add to velocity, set absolute velocity, or change direction. Change direction is a good one as well, but sometimes it can come out with some crazy results. Let's try set absolute velocity. That is not working as well as I thought. I think we'll have to stay with add to velocity. Like I said, you can play around with these and dial these into your requirements. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to, not yet actually, I'm not going to turn off the display yet. I just want to see how, there we go, we've got a bit more. Sometimes you have to play about with the strength a bit more, and sometimes you can get away with just using smaller amounts. I'm going to also turn off the display vector length so that it doesn't sort of distract us, and we've got something sort of decent going there. Maybe we can adjust it more by going into the random field and even changing the noise type. Let's try turbulence. I actually like turbulence a bit better, so I'm going to stick with turbulence for this one. I think I used Stupel or Naki for the previous tutorial, the previous example that I showed you, but this one will do. So we can go into field forces. I'm just going to turn off the display box so you can just turn it off from here. And then what we want to do is we want to mesh it. So how we are going to mesh it is we are going to use a spline. So let's go to rectangle, spline. You can use a square, a rectangle, a circle, an inside, any one of these, whichever ones you like. For this example, I'm going to be using an inside. It is going to create absolutely huge, so let's reduce its scale. And then what we want to do is we want to basically create a sweep. So the sweep, I believe, lives in, it should be in one of these. It's not in that, that's the volume. It's going to be in generators. It's sweep, there we go. So we want to put the spline first and then put the tracer in after, and then when we press play, look at that, we've got some amazing blocks, cylinders or insides that are growing. Now we want to dial it in so that it looks similar to the example that I showed you. So the way we can do that is first by reducing the radius size, because it's quite big, and then we can also reduce the inside sides, or we can turn it up. I think we'll turn it up. Let's turn it up to 22. And then what we can do is inside the sweep we've got loads of tools. So if we click on the sweep and scroll down a bit, we've got details, which is a scale. This is showing you that it's at 100% from the start, and at the end it's 100% also. So we want to tinker with this because we want the end to be a bit smaller because if you've noticed grass when it grows, it's usually a bit more smaller at the top. And if you keep Alt, I think it's Shift, is it? No, it's Control. If you keep Control pressed and click on the bar, it will let you create another sort of a point in which you can control it. So let me just bring out these handles a bit and create something. So you want to basically come up with a design or come up with a profile for this scale spline to match your end look. Then on rotation, we want to rotate it a bit as well, so it has a bit of that look. But because it's a sort of it is a cylinder, no matter its shape, you won't be able to actually see what's going on. And by rotating, you'll think nothing's going on. But if you hit N and B, which is ground shading lines, you will be able to see something is happening. So how we can make that more apparent is if we go over the inside and press C, or you can right click and create current state to object, which will sort of freeze it. And then what we can do is if I press T, or if I go to scale and I sort of bring this in, it should start flattening out the side. Let me just make it a bit bigger and press it down. Let me just go into scale. What has happened here? Let me just alter this a bit because I think the spline is taking over the overall shape. Right, okay. Bear with me while I quickly work out what is going on, because on the previous example this did not happen. But it's good it's happened because it's we can work through it together. Right, okay, it's the wrong sort of axis I was scaling it on. So now that I've done that, I can sort of reduce its size again. And there we go, we've got some sort of grass type strands. And now if we play it back, we'll be able to see. Sorry there, I'm just moving the curtains. If you press play, you'll be able to see these grass strands, and as they come up, they are rotating and giving it more movement. This has probably come out a lot better than the first example that I showed you. But if you're going to sweep now and mess about with the rotation, you'll be able to see how it's rotating. And you can adjust this as you wish to get it to the end look that you'd like. And that is pretty much it. There you've got some growing grass in maybe about 7-8 minutes. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can slow this down, because you might think this is a bit fast still and you might not want to dial it in from the emitter. You can use the friction, and if you then start it from beginning, it will slow it down. As you can see, it's slowed down a lot more. If you turn it up, it'll go even slower. And if you turn it down, it will continue at its pace. This angular strength is when it sort of breaks off into its angle, how much it's going to be influencing the strength of the overall friction on it. And there we go, we've got a bit more twisting than I'd like, so I'm just going to make it a bit more subtle. Sometimes, like I said, something subtle is better than going over the top, because it can break the illusion of making something look a bit more natural. Then for this particular tutorial, we'll just create a normal material using a standard material, attach it to the sweep, and then what we can do is if we double click on it and go into color and go into texture and click on this drop down box, we can select gradient, and on the gradient we want to click on it and change it from U to V, which is vertical. And then we can dial in the colors. So let's choose a green there, let's choose a darker green at the top, and let's choose a sort of a mid green for the middle, maybe even possibly darker, and even darker for this. And there you go, guys, you've got some lovely bit of grass growing, which is, as I said before, quite procedural. So we can go into emitter and we can go into the emitter shape and create as long as you want and as wide as you want. And all you got to do is, if you start thinking to yourself there's only a few growing, you can go into the emitter, go into particle, and just increase the viewport rate. So we can go to, let's say for example, 80 and 80. We will start creating a lot more grass. As you will see, it will start to slow down a bit because there's a lot more traces in the scene, and it's the traces and the sweep working together that actually slow down the performance. So as you can see, we've got sort of a complete rig here. You can use it for anything that you want. If you guys do use it for something, I'm also on Instagram at Redila Media, and do tag me in it. I'd love to see what type of effects and what type of stuff you do create with this. So as always guys, please like, share and subscribe. Do give me a big thumbs up because it does help, and we'll catch you on the next one. Stay blessed.